Magic is found in every room where people connect over a shared purpose. In this weekly podcast, Luke, Hannah, and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset, and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
Hello and welcome to Magic in the Room. I am Hannah Bradbury.
I'm Luke Freeman.
And I'm Chris Province, and we are joined tonight by Dr. Bob Schooley. Dr. Bob, how are you?
I'm good, Chris. Thanks. It's good to be with you guys again.
Man, always great to be with you. And I can just say I can never see you enough. And I look forward to all your difficult questions to answer around tonight's topic. So we're going to talk about mindset again tonight. We've done a couple episodes already. One around like what is mindset. Another one around like fixed versus growth mindset. So we're going to dig into inward versus outward, kind of another dimension that we like to look at, and we're going to talk about why that is all important. But before we get started, I want to learn something about you guys. So let's talk about something interesting, and let's give the story of something strange or interesting that is in your home. So something you have, maybe it's laying around for a short time, maybe it's always on display, but tell me about it. Like, give me something strange or interesting that's sitting around where you're at.
I have this wooden jointed figurine. It's like the body form, and you can put it in any kind of position. And it sits here either on my desk or in the window right next to my desk. And right now it is in the shape of a runner. It used to be in the shape of a dancer when I used to dance tango a lot. But now this little runner is running straight out my window towards the mountains. So it sits in my windowsill in a running pose, and it's facing south to the mountains. And I look at it every day, and it inspires me to go run.
That's awesome. So he points the way, models the way. Literally, modeling the way. You are drenched in irony. Luke, what about you?
Okay, different. Mine has a different vibe. The thing that popped into my head was in my garage right now, vacuum sealed in a bag. There's a dead shark, and we ordered it. And it's out there with a dissection kit just waiting to be pulled open. And so I'm not sure when we'll get to it, hopefully at some point in the next couple days. But the boys have been in and out of school this year, as pretty much everyone's school-age kids have been. And so one of them was a little bummed out. You know, they weren't able to do like the cool, fun thing in their grade that everyone kind of looked forward to in science, to dissect a shark. So we were like, I think we can fix that. So we're going to go through the little guidebook and look at all the body systems and pull this shark apart and see how smelly we can make our house with the formaldehyde.
You know, I was going to talk about my clock behind me. My wife is very humorous. When we first got married, I made a comment about I wish there was a clock in the room. I'm used to having a clock, you know, being able to see what time it is. So this was a kind of a make fun of that little phobia that I have. But the other one that I was thinking about while you guys were talking is for years I have carried this little skinny, tiny, and it's a atlas. It's got all the states. You know, kind of all the detail, just brings back really good memories of, I remember when we used to go on trips, and car trips with our family. My dad would have this gigantic map in the front seat, and someone would get to sit up there between him and my mom and get to help navigate where we were going. So that's kind of I've carried it. It's crazy. I've probably carried that around for 30 years now. So that's my something strange.
That's awesome. And I think we all have these things, right, that we carry around. And sometimes we know why. Like, it always means something to us, but people on the outside would say, I wonder why that is. So thanks, Bob, for that look. And I think we should all take the challenge of having our children navigate us from point A to point B without their phones, right? Remember, like A5, B6. Like, how do I get from, Tulsa to Miami, Florida using only a map? That's things like that are a lot of fun. And I hope to pass that skill on, to my children. My strange or interesting thing, I have to think this is like a one of a kind, but I just want you to see the beautifulness of this luxurious terry cloth bathrobe that I guess was maybe a gift for Whataburger executives.
Wow.
Because that's the real deal. Like, I have a Whataburger super comfy, high quality terry cloth bathrobe.
Wow.
So nanny boo boo.
I've never seen one of those before.
Yeah.
I feel like, is this actually going to be an episode on cognitive dissonance?
Like, I really want to be a Whataburger executive. So that's why I have
I was just
the
thinking
bathrobe.
the really nice robe with that, the logo that just makes you think of like dripping grease.
Yeah. Well, it's probably why
Or being hungover.
it is an extra large bathrobe. So it is on brand. It is on brand.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So let's get back to mindset. And today we're talking about inward versus outward. This is the one I've been really excited about because there's inward versus outward is really nascent. Like, the conversations we're starting about it are really laying the groundwork for how it evolves into organizations. I know we're in the process of building assessment around it. Like, how do people show up? Do they have high citizenry? Do they have concern for others? But for a moment, let's talk about where we've been. We talk about we had an episode speaking to what is mindset. We then spoke to what is fixed versus what is growth mindset. So Luke, kind of give us a real quick debrief on that. Maybe dive into, like, how does that relate to performance? Does that paint the whole picture? Why are we talking today about inward versus outward?
Yeah, so growth versus fixed mindset. There's a lot of conversation out there, a lot of literature. It's become pretty well known kind of in popular consciousness. And it's essentially, to review, this idea that what we believe about ourselves, if we really believe that we come into this world with the tools to be successful or not successful, the gifts that we're given, and we can't really change. So, hey, I'm a natural artist, so those are the things I'm good at. I'm not good at math, so I can never be good at math, right? That would be a fixed mindset. Whereas a growth mindset is saying, hey, all of us can get better if we try hard. That my mind, my strengths are malleable to some degree, and I have some agency to rise to the challenges in my life. It's more of a growth mindset, willingness to be challenged and grow. And people have applied that to organizations quite a bit, thinking about innovation, especially thinking about creating new business models. Where we find there are limits and what makes us so excited about inward versus outward is that there can be folks, and you might know some people like this, who really demonstrate a growth mindset, but they're not necessarily the people that you want your team's success riding on, or you want to lead your organization. They might be someone that they're not afraid to work hard. They're not afraid to build new competencies. They're not afraid to try new things. But for whatever reason, it feels like it's just about them winning, them conquering, them getting where they need to go. And they're willing to do anything to get there, but less willing to bring any other folks along on the ride, or to choose to conquer in areas that actually have a positive impact on other people. And so that's where we get to this idea of inward versus outward. And before we kind of turn that over and talk about what that is, I think what is so exciting about this is that apart, these two concepts are great. I mean, growth versus fix, super helpful. As a parent, incredibly helpful. As a leader, helpful. Leading myself, very helpful to challenge myself in what areas of my life to have a fixed mindset. And inward and outward, as you'll see, is very helpful. But when we layer these on top of each other and start asking the question of how do I become someone who has a growth mindset and also an outward mindset, man, I just get super excited. So that might be a spoiler alert, but I just want people to know, like, that's where we're going, and we're going to talk about that interplay. But for now, yeah, let's really discuss inward, outward. What is it? Why does it matter?
Yeah, and it's amazing. There's this dynamic that exists on teams that sometimes when you look across a team, and especially like director level, you see some departments are really competent, checking all the boxes, super compliant, delivering the experience. And then other departments, like the other 9 departments, might be lagging. You might have one leader in one department 40 miles ahead of everyone else. And I'm always challenged to think, like, what is it they're actually accomplishing? Like, we're the most compliant, we deliver the best experience, pound our chest, look at us. Like, that to me is inward. If we were outward, we would be back there with the rest of the departments, like sharing best practices and bringing them along. And, so that's how I see it showing up a lot of times, is you have maybe one department or a particular team way out in front. But like, we always have that calling. We got to go back and pick up those other people. So maybe I'm just sharing how I see it sometimes. But Bob, give us a little more context around, like, what is inward and what is outward, and why is it important?
Yeah, I think when I think of outward mindset is someone who genuinely cares about the well-being of others or the people around them. And why I think that is so important is I think when you have that authentic, genuine care for your team or the whole, all of your team members with regards to their well-being, that's going to lead, I think, to a healthy, flourishing organization. And I very much resemble the profile that Luke described earlier. I think when it comes to a growth mindset, I think I'm pretty healthy there. But when it comes to an outward mindset, I've got a lot of work to do. It's kind of a life-changing event when you come to the realization that you do have an inward mindset. And I tend to, this is kind of sad to share, but the only time I think of people, or used to be, the only time I thought of someone is when I needed something from them. So I just, that was kind of started a little bit of an alarm bell. I just felt like, well, that's not right. And I think for me, coming up with a personal purpose, and that's why I think I have specific language in my purpose about I want to help organizations be healthy so that all people flourish. And to me, that all people is kind of an internal mechanism for me to remember that, not just the people that can help me out or that I need help from.
Yeah. And I think let's go ahead and name that, Bob. Like, really, this idea of, if I have an inward mindset, my behaviors are really protecting myself, moving my own agenda forward, and seeing other people as like, hey, if I am in need, then I can tap the resource of others. If somebody needs something from me, it's a bother or it's an obstacle to somehow manage. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Chris.
Yeah. So, Luke, what are some of the ways you see this show up, like within teams and organizations?
Don't want to add too many theories in here, but I think about hierarchy of needs. Like when I know a team or an organization is inward, is when they're concerned about safety, security, having enough, getting compensated enough. And when I see teams, individuals, organizations who really seem to be demonstrating an outward mindset and living with that mindset, it feels like they're kind of past that. And they truly can say, the needs that we're meeting are relational needs, or are really these needs of actualization. And sure, we do work that provides compensation, but we're really interested in meaningful connection and actualization for ourselves, for our team members, for clients, customers, other stakeholders. And I think that's where, I'm going to be really honest, like there aren't that many teams that are there, like explicitly there. I think you find a lot of teams that they've kind of gotten there because they're mature adults and they've realized, okay, we've got a stable job and we're doing this work together every day. So let's do it in a way that's fun and where we like each other and we enjoy winning together and being a team. And so they kind of accidentally fall into this outward thing. And you see these teams that, hey, we all go do a volunteer day together and we hang out together and do a soup drive or a canned food drive or whatever it is, and they kind of fall into it without any direction, I think, because that's what people do when they have what they need. Is all of a sudden when you have what you need, you can start thinking a little bit bigger than yourself. But whole organizations who have made that conscious decision to be outward, man, there just aren't many.
Yeah, and Luke, you were not even on today's conversation. Luke, or Bob, and Ben and I were having a different conversation around noontime. And like what you just said, I thank you for opening the door. But we talked about the same thing. Like it's a hierarchy of need thing. Like once I know there's food on the table, then I can be outward. I can give away some of my excess. Once I know there's a roof over my head, then I can offer shelter to someone. Like once I'm warm, then I can offer warmth. Like there is definitely a hierarchy at play. But I love that you opened up the fact, like this conversation specifically around food security. And, because there's such a national dialogue going on right now around, McDonald's, Costco, Olive Garden. I mean, kind of the list goes on and on. We're going to $15 an hour, et cetera, et cetera. But really the idea is if you are in any service organization and you expect your employees to focus on the people they're serving and not themselves, we have to make certain or do our best to make certain their baseline needs are met. And I think what a lot of world-class hospitality organizations have figured out is if I can address food security while they're on site, like during that 8 hours a day, that gets that employee 2 meals. Maybe it's free, maybe it's $1.50, I don't know. But that person from that family is going to have their food security addressed, and then they can use their effort to focus on the food security of their other family members, or, just not worry about that piece of basic function while they're on the job. And it is very much a thing. Like we can only give once we have the roof or once we have the food.
Yeah, and let me just make it really real, I guess. With how many organizations have done what you just described and said, hey, meals are taken care of while you're here. If you're a frontline employee that maybe is not making enough to be able to save and get all the food you need, and whatever else, like we're going to take the food issue off the table. Like how many organizations have that policy and intentionality, that program in place, versus how many organizations have put some sort of intentionality and effort around designated parking spots for senior leaders? Like there is a huge disparity. Like let's just say 2% have done some sort of intentional thing around the former. I don't know what the statistic is on the other. If you think about large organizations, 90% have some sort of program that someone manages in their organization. It might not be a full-time job, but it's on someone's radar to like, who gets what parking spot and how do we dole that out? That's what I mean when I say I don't see many organizations that really have codified an intentional outward mindset. Teams, sure, we're going to all go do Race for the Cure together, you know, this Thursday afternoon. Like teams do that all the time because people are good. Organizations though, like, man, at least in America the last 60 years, like some things have gone off the rails.
Oh. Yeah, I don't want to ruin like why it's important, but if you are truly in community with the people you work with, we make sure that they're fed. And it's hard for me to believe that, you know, organizations that propagate a $7.25 wage can have an outward mindset because they're not addressing some basic functions or basic needs of their community base. And that's not me being activist, that's just me being real. Like if you pay people $7.25 an hour or want to try to get by on $8.50 an hour, if you think in the terms of how little can I pay this labor in order to extract versus how much can I pay this person and increase their value, like that is inward versus outward. I love, man, like things are real tonight. I love it. Bob, where are you at? What are you thinking?
Well, I just listening to you and Luke share those ideas, it kind of made me reflect a little bit. I kind of wonder, for me personally, I think that my inward mindset is really kind of, when Luke mentioned the hierarchy of needs, I kind of started thinking about, you know, I think it has something to do with my need for attention or recognition, you know, to kind of be recognized as a key player or a key contributor. And I think that's tied to perhaps some kind of insecurity. I don't know. I'm just kind of kicking that around as we speak. And then I flip it over and I think about the outward mindset. To me, that typically I think of words like humility and empathy. And then that took me to Collins' Good to Great. You know, he talks about a level 5 leader is extremely humble but tenacious. And I love that. I think that really kind of describes the earlier conversation we were having about leadership and kind of that competitive collaboration. I think Collins may have nailed that back in the 80s with Good to Great. You know, and then it's one of our favorite metaphors, and I know we like to use this one a lot, but Collins talks about, I think he was talking about outward leaders when he talks about there are leaders they're wheel horses. They're not show horses. They don't want to be up front. They don't want to be getting all the publicity and the glamour. They are next to the wagon and they're carrying the heaviest load, and they're the strongest contributors to moving that wagon forward. So I don't know. Thank you. This has been kind of a nice breakthrough for me. I feel like I should be paying you guys for some kind of therapy session or something here.
As you were speaking, I was thinking about, you know, what you said about my need for recognition or for, you know, being noticed or seen, and whether that comes from some kind of insecurity. I think if it does, then it's the same insecurity that every human being has. We've talked about that a lot on this podcast, that every human being, like basic, most fundamental need is the need to be noticed. Because if we're not noticed as, as infants, we're 100% dependent on another human being to notice us and pay attention to our needs for our survival, right? Which is where arguably the whole, pyramid of your physical needs are first could be potentially contested, that your needs may come first, because without being met, we wouldn't get our physical needs met. And so I think that's why recognition is so important. But I think for leaders and for individuals who are trying to cultivate a more outward mindset, just bearing that in mind, that every human being has that need to feel seen and heard and valued. And if we can put our focus, instead of inward on our own need and insecurity, and turn it outward to the people around us, to try to fill that need in someone else, I think that gets us really far. And so instead of just trying to be like, hey, notice me, look at me, I look at Luke, say, what does Luke need from me right now? What does Chris need from me right now? What does Bob need from me? How can I make a meaningful connection? How can I contribute in a way that their day is better, or that we as a team are able to do better work together?
And what you just hit on, though, Hannah, is a couple big points. One is outward mindset is focused on the collective result and establishing collective mindset and the collective conscious. So conscience, our awareness, conscious, our mindset. Like, what is our collective awareness? What is our collective mindset? What is our collective result? And that's why you say, how can I be in service to them in a way that makes us all better? I don't know that it can be said better than that. The other thing you touched on, and we've touched on as a theme, is confidence. Like, when I'm confident that I have food on my table, I can give you food. When I'm confident I am warm, I can give you warmth. It also applies to when I'm confident in my purpose, I can give you service. If I'm not confident in where I'm going, then that introduces doubt into our relationship. Because if I don't know my agenda, how can I be trustworthy of yours? So that's the other value of purpose as it relates to mindset. Our purpose gives us confidence. Like, we know why we get out of bed today. We know where we're going. We know the arc of this day. Therefore, I have confidence that I can help you because I know how you fit into my story and I know how I want to impact yours. And that's what I think breeds that humility that Collins was speaking to. I can be humble because I'm confident in where I'm going and I'm confident in what I want to do for you. And I'm not looking to proclaim that I did something great. I just want to live a life of service and meaningful connection.
Does that go even further, though? So my question that I think is forming, and I totally agree with you around, only when I'm confident in my own shelter can I provide shelter for you. But then I hear you kind of minimize that a little bit when you say, only when I'm confident in my purpose can I give you service. I wonder if it holds true to say, only when I'm confident in my purpose can I provide purpose to others. So as a leader, right, not that we're all called to provide purpose to others. I don't think, I'm kind of working this out in real time right here, but does it hold true that only if we're confident in our purpose can we provide purpose to a group or a team that we're leading?
Oh, it would be very difficult if you didn't to do that. And that's why, that's ultimately where all of our coaching engagements have to tie back to. Why do we get out of bed in the morning? What do we believe in? What are those profound things that we believe we can make happen? What's the greatest good we can accomplish? Once we're clear about that individually, only then can we bring something to the collective. And it can work both ways. Like we've worked in organizational settings or team settings that then we, develop personal purpose from that. It also becomes like you bring your profound belief to the team and help set the direction and identify like why this team exists and what we set out to do every day. So it works both ways, but ultimately I've kind of come to this belief that the only way we can have confidence and the humility that comes from that is to understand why we exist, or have some belief and behavior about what we exist to do. And Bob touched on it earlier. He's like, hey, I've got this thing now, right? It really helps me.
And along those lines, I'm really finding too that like the coaching that I've been doing recently being like the last 4 or 5 years, and then encouragement. When I'm encouraging someone, I really feel like that's when I really kind of get into that outward groove, if you will. Just really, and I think purpose is right in there with that. And I love what Hannah said about recognition of others. That can be an extremely powerful, gosh, I don't know what the right word, gift, I guess, but helping someone kind of know that they are important, they're heard, they're seen.
Bob, I think you hit on something there. Is there something that's more outward than encouragement? Right? Encouraging someone else, it's a message about them. It highlights their strengths, right? Maybe there's some social benefit. It's creating a tie between you and that person, right? That you get some sort of benefit from. But for the most part, that's a very outward, extremely outward activity. And as I sit here and apply that to organizations, I kind of had this light bulb go off to say, like, what would it mean to lead an organization or to create an organization that existed to encourage the people around it, the other organizations around it, the community with which it's in? Like, could there be an encouraging organization? What would that look like?
That's kind of what we're working on with this whole Igniter assessment. And so to kind of let the cat out of the bag, like we look at people show up to any team or organization with a spark. And when we can see that spark and feed it and fuel it and make it a fire, like that's what pushes teams and organizations forward. So when we look at what is the level of growth mindset and what is the level of outward mindset, if you're high in growth and you're high in outward, then you are an igniter mindset. You basically have the ability to take the sparks that people bring and turn them into raging fires. And Bob, do you kind of want to talk about the process that we're going through to, why we're building that assessment and what it could mean for organizations and some of your vision for that?
Yeah, I think Chris, what's been kind of interesting is there's a large percentage of us that literally live our entire life, and we really don't understand the concept of mindset, nor do we truly understand what type of mindset we have. So I think what we're doing, to me, one of the most powerful things that we're contributing to the greater good is to give people a very, I think, easy and efficient, fair and valid way of kind of better understanding what their mindset is with regards to growth and outward mindsets. And I'm really excited too about combining the two, and the growth mindset, as many people probably know, is Carol Dweck. A lot of the research, she's kind of led the way, led the charges. And when it comes to a growth mindset, the Arbinger Institute has done a lot of work They have some amazing case studies of people that have been able to go from an inward to an outward mindset and the impact that that had on their organization. And I think fundamentally what we believe about the Igniter mindset is, the degree to which you're able to nurture and support and attract that kind of talent or that type of person into your organization, we feel it's going to contribute to the health of that organization as well as its sustainable success. I'm really excited. I think the assessment that we're putting together, it's got a very strong coaching component associated to that. And again, I think it's going to be for some people, it will truly be life changing to be aware of what mindset they have, and then B, better understand how that mindset really impacts their behaviors, and then literally kind of their life in general.
Yeah, and let's kind of before we kind of wrap up on inward outward, I want to talk about one more key thing, and that is like levels of responsibility for these different mindsets. So an outward mindset, are they wired to accept different levels of accountability? Are they learning? Are they informed by the successes that they have? But Bob, can you kind of start us off by shining a little bit of light on just how they view their responsibilities within a team or organization? And then Luke, if you'll follow up on that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And we talked about this in one of our previous mindset conversations. That there's growing evidence out there that our mindset is kind of hardwired. It's in our DNA. And I think Luke, when we talked about this the first time, brought up a really good point. Is okay, it may be more nature than nurture, but then the whole aspect of just being aware of your mindset, what it is, how it influences your life, and then being intentional about that. In both DeWick and the Arbinger Institute, that's one of the key messages they share with people about mindset is, first you've got to understand where you are before you can make any kind of adjustments or any kind of improvement. And then kind of knowing where you are, and then kind of putting in place a structure. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier with regards to having a personal purpose. Getting involved in activities that are going to pull you towards growth or pull you towards being outward. For me, that's been the coaching that we do. And then I'm a big believer in encouragement. So I think, as far as mindset is concerned, I tend to agree that a lot of it is nature. It's in our DNA. I do think our early experiences, way early experiences, can also contribute to that. But I also believe that once you're aware of something with a lot of hard work and intentionality, you can take steps in the right direction. And I just think I want to be really clear on something too, is I think changing our mindsets is probably one of the most challenging things we'll ever do. But I also believe it's one of the most important and rewarding things that we'll ever do.
Bob, I have a question. When you said earlier that our mindset is hardwired, to me that sounds like it's fixed. And maybe I just don't understand it correctly, but if our mindset is hardwired, that doesn't sound like it can change. And the whole premise of a growth mindset is that we can change and we can grow and we can move from a fixed to a growth mindset. And in this case, from inward to outward. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the DNA folks would tell us that a lot of our personality traits, they can actually test for those now and can basically see those in our DNA. The validity of that's getting stronger and stronger. Um, so I don't know that it, to me, I don't know that that says it's fixed or it's a fixed view of mindset. I think a, a fixed a fixed view of mindset would be more like, I don't even want to try. I don't want to learn what my mindset is because I'm not interested in trying to change or develop or move in a different direction. Um, but that's a good question. I think I think I'm gonna have to think on that one for a while, Hannah. But that is good. That might be a little bit of my fixed mindset coming out in me.
I don't I don't think it is, Bob. I mean, I think it's just that it's not easy to move towards a growth mindset if we're predisposed to have a fixed mindset. Or it's not easy to have an outward mindset if we're predisposed to have an inward mindset. And I think about if I have a cup over here on the left and a cup on the right, and and one's inward and one's outward, or one's fixed and one's growth. My cup isn't full of water where I can just pour it into the other one and say, "Oh, there, I'm done." My cup is really probably more filled with like peanut butter, or something that's a little harder to get all out of one cup and into the other, and it's going to take some effort and some scraping and some put it in the microwave to soften it up or whatever it is. Like there's just some resistance there that's built into who we are that we have to become conscious of. Because if I just pour my cup of peanut butter over, depending on what kind it is, right, and try and put it in this cup, and I would just think, well, this is water, this is easy, right? And I don't understand that it's peanut butter, and I don't understand that peanut butter's sticky, I'm not going to be successful. But the more I understand, the more I learn about peanut butter, I might get an idea to say, oh, I need a spoon, right? Oh, I need to stick it in the microwave, whatever, I'm going to be intentional and build a strategy to get that peanut butter into the other cup. And so when I hear about genetic predisposition, like that's how I think about it. It's not the door is closed to changing and to growth. It ain't going to happen by accident, and it ain't going to happen in 5 minutes, right? It's going to be a process that I have to take seriously if I really want to be the best, highest performing version of myself that I can be.
Well, and I'm going to create the Luke Freeman Extra Effort Award, and it's going to be a spoon, because you have extracted the peanut butter. Because I am genetically predisposed to want to sit on the couch and watch baseball. Like it is, I love doing it, right? Like who doesn't? Everybody's got their baseball thing, right? With some people, it's read a book or do something else that's mindless. But it's this idea of if I got out my spoon and I say, what can I do to be more helpful at home? Not like what's the threshold requirements that I can meet so I can sit on the couch and watch baseball. What can I do to be more helpful at work? Not the threshold requirements I need to fulfill to keep my job. What can I do to be more helpful to someone that I know? What about the people I don't know? Who do I need to know and can help? Like get the spoon out, right? Maybe that's a rallying cry. Like get the spoon out. What can I do? Not when can I be done? So if we talk about inward, outward, inward is when can I be done? Outward is what can I do?
And that's I can see this on Hannah's face because I feel like I know what's coming is that we have to be balanced, and there's the healthy mind platter, right? Which includes rest and play and exploration. And I don't know, all the things that Hannah knows off the top of her head, right? But it's why. Why do I rest? Am I resting because I like to rest? And my brain and my body say, use as little amount of calories as possible because that's what makes you happy? Or do I rest because I say, if I'm strategic and I rest tonight and I take some time off and I read a couple chapters of the novel I'm enjoying, tomorrow I'm going to be more creative and more present and can be a blessing in the lives of the people that I interact with. Sorry, Hannah, I didn't mean to speak for you. I mean, you're nodding, so I hope I hit it okay. But I mean, how do you apply these ideas of like pushing yourself, forming yourself with that idea of balance and sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about that a lot, right? Between us as a team, and it's something I think a lot about because to me, it's all about how do I show up for the people and the tasks and the projects in my life in a way that I can be my best self. So, for me, it's asking the question, who are the people and the relationships that deserve my best energy? And what are the tasks or the projects that deserve my best energy? And recognizing that in order for me to show up as my best self and lead and, infuse some energy and passion and joy into my work, which really affects my results, I have to do the things that not only restore my energy, but rejuvenates me so that I can have something to give, right? If I'm going to be outward, I have to be able to have something to give. So it's a little bit of that concept of filling your own cup so it overflows and you have something to give. And I think that kind of harkens back to our earlier conversation about, feeling confident that your needs are met so you have something to give to others. And I do think as humans, every individual, we carry a responsibility and have to have some ownership in that, right? Of understanding how we work, how our nervous system operates, how our physiology works so that we can, optimize our performance, not just in our, technical output, but what kind of energy we show up with every day, how we influence the people around us, with the kind of energy that sparks joy and that leads to greater performance.
Yeah. I think the real challenge is when we spend 80% of our time filling our cups and forget to share it with other people. So the idea is to be intentional about it, like everything else, like performance and intentionality are highly correlated, right? So when we intentionally fill the cup, then we show up energized and ready to give.
Well, and I think the whole difference there is purpose, right?
Right.
What is the intent? What is the impact you want to have? If you lead with that, you're not going to be spending 80% filling your cup for your own purpose. That doesn't even factor in then, right? Because you know what you're trying to achieve and what impact you're trying to have.
Yeah, and without it, though, we're very much at risk to just watching a lot of baseball. So that's so let's get out of here. Let's get some final thoughts on just outward mindset, what it means to you. If you want to drop a takeaway right here, that's fine too. Let's kind of go around the horn, and as we close up, tonight's discussion, like what's on your mind?
I came into this thinking about inward outward as a leader, inward outward as a team member, and maybe even as a team that's inward versus outward. But I'm leaving tonight with this question that I really want to give some thought to, which is what is an outward organization? What's an organization that's a source of encouragement in the ecosystem that it's in? And I know there are some examples out there that that come to mind, but what if that was the goal? What would that look like? What would that make the role of a executive leader? How would that role be different if it was an outward organization versus a organization focused on inward surviving? So I'm going to chew on that. I'm really grateful for this team for giving me that question to chew on.
Yeah. Look forward to that answer, Luke. Hand up, Bob.
Yeah, I think for me, and I always love sitting in with you guys and having these conversations because it's always thought provoking. And tonight, just what we talked about with regards to outward and humility and empathy, and then connecting that with Collins and his work on level 5 leadership, that just really, for me, that's going to be really helpful. And then I just want to echo what Luke just said too. I think, and Chris, we were talking about that with Ben earlier today about just the whole thing about organizational mindset and being able to gather some data that helps us kind of understand where the organization is on their journey. And boy, that Luke, when you think about that concept of an outward high growth organization or community, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I think I'll jump off on that word community. That's really what this is about for me. And so when we can shift our focus from being centered on our own needs and look at the needs of our fellow individuals, whether they are on our team, inside our family, in our larger community, and we can start to operate from that mindset of how can I be of service to these people in a way that makes us all better together, and that can create a stronger community. That I think is when not only the community or the organization or the family becomes stronger, but I think we have a greater level of satisfaction with life in general. And so I think that's my big takeaway.
Yeah. And then what I'll share is like outward to me is releasing this idea that I will do something if only this happens. You know, when my dad recognizes how wrong he is, I will reconcile my relationship with him. When my daughter realizes that she married the person I never wanted her to marry and realizes how empty that person is, then I will reestablish my relationship with them. When the boss realizes he made a mistake in promoting who they promoted and didn't pick me, if only then I will take action and engage with my job. So this idea of I will do this if only this happens, if only these conditions were met, if only I had a little more food in the fridge, if only I had a little more financial security, if only I had a little better position, then I would take action. And what an outward mindset tells me is I pick me, and I pick the innate love that I have for other people. And the fact that we are in the same room, I support you, I want to connect with you, I want to have a meaningful relationship where we can grow, develop, and achieve great things together. And release the concept of if only, waiting for other people to change, waiting for other people's decision, or waiting for other people's mindset to turn. I want to turn mine regardless. So thank you all for helping me get to that realization. As you guys know, we do this work every day. If you guys want to talk about citizenry or teamwork and mindset within your organization, what is your collective result? What is your collective existence as of today, and how we can grow and move that forward, whether it's through assessment or coaching. You can feel free to reach out to us on any of our social channels, our website, any of us here on the podcast. So would love to talk to you all about that. This is the work that we do every day. And obviously, like, we're still on the journey ourselves. So thank you all so much. Dr. Bob, thank you for the time. Luke, Hannah, thank you as always, and we will see you next time on Magic in the Room.